I know my lot in life. I'm new on YouTube. Well, if you're watching this on demand later, thanks for joining. This is not something I usually do, and I hope it goes okay. If it does, I'll do more. We'll see. I'm going to try to invite some friends on this so I don't feel so alone. Hey, first viewer, thank you for coming. Is this working? Please let me know. This is my first time streaming with this setup on YouTube, so please, Augustine, thank you for joining. Let me know if there's anything I can fix as I go, because I am, like I said, brand new. Yeah, I guess I feel like I have to do this. Just giving into social pressure. My buddy Marco turned me on to this. I like stuff like this, especially I don't know, just it like it. There's just no pressure. I don't care. If this looks like shit, I don't care. Cool, thanks, Hassan. I'm gonna. By the way, this is my first time streaming like this anyway. So if I'm slow on the chats, just let me know. Well, I mean, don't let me know because I won't see them. But you know what I mean. Have some patience, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, this challenge is kind of ridiculous. I like it. I like stuff like this. It's kind of fun to participate in, I don't know, big social stuff like this. It's kind of cool. It's nice to see the community come together. It is a little bit. I've seen a lot of people like treating it as if it's this like big conspiracy, which I think is hilarious. Like people are like really bothered by it. I don't get it. What's up, Rob? I'll do one of these one day with like tips and tricks and all kinds of stuff, but I'm just sort of like trying to figure out if I like streaming or not. By the way, this is the liner toothy from the watercolor pack. That one right there. That's yeah, Gustav. I think I just answered your question. That's the liner toothy. I like something that's a little bit um, gritty because it kind of gives me that like manga feel a little bit, which I kind of dig. Um, it's also the kind of thing I don't do a lot of inking these days. Unfortunately, I like it a lot, um, but just trying to find an excuse to use this one. I like it quite a bit. The background, the coloring is sort of just like quick rough, just to find my place here. Let me show you the playback. Um, I've started this like 6 times. Hey Lynn, how you doing? Um, so this is the first one that I went with, and I started to get. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I was getting into it, and as I started to ink it, it got weird. It just sort of like lost something about it that I liked. So I'll just let this play through. Is it smooth enough on the playback, by the way? Seems good on my screen, but I can never tell on the stream. Augustine, the overlap. So this brush, there's two versions of the brush. One is the standard one, and it's designed to be a little bit less than perfectly opaque, so that it feels kind of more realistic. The I think the black version is fully opaque and doesn't have those sort of that imperfect fill. So it's there. So if it's just depends on whatever your preference is. Okay, so this is where this piece started to get weird, and I wanted to do some like crescent moon shapes in her eye. I'm gonna rewind that. Crescent moon shapes in her eye as if she's like powering up for some kind of, I don't know, whatever. Just an idea. I think it sort of just drifted from what I was trying to do though. So I was like, let it go. So this one got angry. I wasn't looking at the ref, and she just got really mad, which I felt like was a little bit strange. Mic is a little bit low. Oh, thank you. How's the mic now? Any better? So this one she got sad. Again, I just kept experimenting. I don't know what the hell to do. I do like the sketch though, but it was just like, I don't know, a little bit defeated looking. So I wanted to just, I don't know, just wasn't the mood I was in. Hassan, iPad is a professional tool. I've for I don't know 5 years now. I've been using it as my primary illustration tool. Um, I've been selling my brushes for a couple years, but I've been making my brushes basically the whole time since the iPad Pro came out. So this is the sketch we're on right now. That's about as hot as I can make my mic. But I suggest maybe just turn up your volume. That's the best I can do for now. Um, so I started toning the background, just playing with brushes and stuff. Um, and I just wanted to get that like a bounce color. So it's kind of like purples and reds, and then that's local color that I multiplied, and then on that's like a just like a backlight sunlight kind of effect. And now that kind of catches you up. So I'm inking currently. Let's see. I don't have a great plan on this, by the way. I'm just sort of screwing around. So, um, and like I said, I'm probably going to be a little slow on chat, so I apologize. I don't know much about Sailor Moon, if I'm being totally honest. I like the aesthetic. I'm familiar just from like a pop culture standpoint, but I don't have like a lot of deep Sailor Moon knowledge. It probably doesn't surprise a lot of people, but um, I don't know. So I'm probably getting stuff wrong. I'll probably like get some purists pissed off at me. So please, purists, don't swat me. Okay. I hope I didn't give you any ideas. But yeah, Hassan. In terms of like iPad as a professional tool, I've been loving this. I was working at in post, and so of course during the day I was doing Photoshop and Maya and all kinds of things. Um, but um, but at home it was just more fun. I like to go to cafes and on the couch. It's nice to be able to not feel like you're stuck in like work mode with a Cintiq. I had a 24-inch Cintiq at home and had a little bit of trouble with it, but so I got rid of it. But I don't miss it at all. I was hanging on to it just because I felt like I should, um, but I don't miss it. I don't really use it. I've been using my iPad, and I'm finding that I feel like it feels more precise. Procreate is sort of the version of Photoshop that I always wanted. It's like the bloat-free Photoshop that I feel like I've always been begging for. Photoshop is great, but it's kind of a sandbox that just um, I feel like it's just really bloated, and I'm over it. I don't find that it's not over it, like, but it's just I don't believe it's the only and best drawing tool. I think I think it's a great tool. Um, Sorry, I'm having trouble talking and drawing at the same time. But it doesn't mean it's the only or definitive drawing tool. It's great. Depends on what you want to do with it. But I like. Sorry. Ah, Sorry, you guys don't get to see my chats. Um, Photoshop, though, I feel like is such a sandbox that it has to be full of these tools that we don't really typically need. Um, and so I think Procreate is just a lot more focused. And so that caught my eye, and I've really enjoyed working in Procreate a lot. It's not the only or best tool for everybody. It's going to depend on your pipeline and what you need um, out of your iPad. I happen to love my iPad and have it on me all the time, so it just kind of fits my style well, and I've never looked back. And then I built a career around it with my brushes and everything else. So of course now I have an incentive to keep using it. But I genuinely do it because I love it, not for any like crass commercial reasons. It's just, I mean, it happens to line up with the fact that I need it for my current income. So I have um, an incentive to keep using it. But I really do genuinely just like love this program. Lynn, this is the liner toothy in the watercolor pack. Let's see. I'm So the artist Julian, I'm streaming with Reflector 3 through what is this? Streamlabs OBS. This is a brand new setup. First time trying it tonight. Um, I Please let me know how the tech is going. It seems like it's working fine, but again, super new to all this, so I hope it's looking the way I intend. Let's see. Have I realized anybody's has anybody realized I'm sketching them? Kind of. There's one story that's really funny. A friend of ours, we were out sketching in a group, kind of at a bar, and um, there was this like gigantic biker who came in, and his tiny little girlfriend. And like the dude is, I'm not joking, he's a mountain, just like he's a meat castle. He's just the hugest dude. And he came in, and of course everybody wants to draw him, right? This is like everybody's looking at the two of them because they're just hilarious together. Um, and so of course we're all drawing him, but we're all trying to be stealthy. And and a friend of ours who just has no chill, she drew him and like stared at him the whole time. Uh, and of course he noticed. So we're all losing our minds because like he's gonna murder us. We don't know what's gonna happen. And he came over and couldn't have been sweeter. He was like, "Hey, I saw you drawing me." He sort of like fired a warning shot a little bit, but it was clear that he was just curious. He was just uh, sort of flattered, but also sort of like letting us know that like, hey, you're not as stealthy as you probably think you are, which is funny. Yeah, it's good enough. I have to remind myself this is just a sketch. I don't really care if this is perfect. I'm just having fun. It's a little cool down tonight. Thanks for joining me, guys. This is fun. I wasn't sure if I was gonna tackle this tonight, but I'm glad you're here. I don't do enough cool down sketching these days. In terms of sketching versus rendering, man, that's hard. I think like how do you know when a sketch is done? Is that what the question is? Let's see. Yeah, when like rendering, coloring, kind of you want to throw it away. I get that. I get that all the time. I like the energy of a sketch. I think what I've been trying to do lately. Oops. Oh yeah, okay, that's fine. Is I do something that I call brush size discipline, which maybe sounds weird and technical, but I like the idea of this is I try to treat my digital sketches as if I'm using a real brush. And the reason I do that is because like if I were to zoom way in and make my brush super small and then like noodle this stuff and come out and like detail it perfectly, that it looks wrong. Like you can't even see the line, it's too small. I like to have the biggest brush I'm able to able to work with, um, in order to make it feel traditional and imperfect, and it often leads to cool artifacts. And I think that could be a way that you could get some of the energy back and some of the spontaneity back in a sketch, if that's where it's hanging up. You can see I'm actually making my brush bigger. I'm not using full pressure, so if I want to, I can really get a fat line on it. and get some of those artifacts in it. But right now, I'm just sort of being loose with it as if it was a I don't know what's the word, like a tech pen sort of thing that I can push on and get what I need out of it. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of letting it be like the base transparency. Part of the reason is I like that fat tooth on it. Just kind of looks grainy and cool, and that's what I'm looking for. Let's see. Yeah, Rafa Meat Castle. That's from like a Bon Appetit. There's like a wrestler on Bon Appetit, the YouTube channel. He called himself a Meat Castle, and it was like the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Um, Hassan, I wonder if it might just be my sketch that's distorted horizontally. I hope if I turn it like this, does it still look distorted? If that makes sense. Canvas resolution is a this is what is this? Probably 11 by 14 at 300 dpi or something like that. So it's probably around what is that? 3300 by 40 something, 4000 something. I'm not gonna do math. I'm drinking a beer. I don't. This is not math time. I'm kind of doing this without reference. I should probably pull up the Sailor Moon reference. See, the thing is, I want to be playing music during this, but YouTube likes to go after copyrights, so I'm trying to do this without. Come on. So I'm trying to. So I'd love to like play music on these streams, but I'm afraid to get copyright strike and have my brand new channel taken down. Um, but whatever. So what I'll probably do is like do some. I'll license some music, the stuff that I use on my other YouTube videos. Do it that way. What about Twitch, Gustav? I was debating going on Twitch. I feel like I'm trying to build up one platform at a time. I'm Twitch is interesting, but I don't know that it's gonna be my audience exactly. It's cool. It's nothing against Twitch. I just I think at this point I want to build up one spot at a time. But I think you can play whatever you want there. Which planet is my favorite planet? Lynn, going deep. Oh, I wish. Yeah, I wish I knew the show. I don't. I mean, I've seen bits. I've gotten clips and stuff, but I wouldn't say that I'm like. I don't definitely don't have any deep knowledge. Um, Favorite planet though, generally speaking. I mean, Saturn's easy just because it's visually cool, but that's so lame. That's like being a Genji main of planets. I feel like that's a weird deep cut. I barely even know what I'm talking about with that. Um, it's tricky. I think Mars has a special place in my heart. I think only just because I can picture it. It's so interesting to be able to picture a planet that you've never been to. My Overwatch. I don't really play Overwatch. I have friends who play Overwatch, um, and one of them happens to be a Genji main, and he takes a lot of crap for it. So, it's sort of a dig about something that I know basically zero about. I've played it a little bit, but no good. It's one of those things. It's a game that feels like a commitment. Like it feels like a life choice to play Overwatch. Like I feel like nobody plays it casually. Everybody is just like, oh, this is just my entire identity now. I have enough of those things in my life, and one of those is art. That's not a dig at anybody who loves Overwatch. I have my video games that I play. I play things like the Division. I'm playing um, Control right now, which is unbelievably cool. Holy crap! One of the most interesting games I've played in my life. It might be my new favorite game. It's just absolutely stunning. Trying to work out this clavicle. It seemed to make sense in my sketch, and I'm sort of losing. I'm like, how do I describe a clavicle without going too deep on this? That's not terrible. I don't know. I feel like I'm losing subtlety here. It's a little strange. Erase that. I don't like it. It's a fine line with hatching. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do the lines that I'm comfortable with, and then on a separate layer come back and do the hatching that I'm experimenting with, so that it's like I'm not 100% committed, and I can always like erase the hatching without destroying everything. Hmm. Okay. It's not terrible. I still don't know what these circles are. Classic hair circles. Lynn, I have not gotten the DLC. I'm like, what is it? I'm probably like, I don't know, half, 2/3 of the way through the game. So I'm trying not to watch too much because I'm like getting my mind blown at every second. So I'm like, there's got to be some kind of weird thing that I'll spoil for myself if I pay too much attention to that. So like I caught some of it, but that was before I was playing the game. So I've been trying not to spoil anything. That's a weird braid. I'm gonna see if I can clean that up a little bit later. Trying to leave a little bit of an air gap there, here, for the sake of just describing that form a little better. We'll see. I'll probably forget and just it'll be a massive hair for no reason. Again, this is just kind of a sketch. I'm not taking this too seriously. Time for some eye highlights. I have no idea how I'm going to do this. What I'll probably do is clipping mask. Let's see, clipping mask. So that way it cuts it out of the ink. Hmm. It's too easy to just do this, right? In terms of control, Lynn, you'll probably know this if you've already beaten it. I'm I'm in the what is it? The like the what do you call it? Containment room where they have all the items that are like not objects of power, but the other ones, altered items. And so I just did the refrigerator mission, and oh my god, one of the most mind-blowing missions I've ever experienced in my life. I know that sounds so weird out of context, guys, but holy crap. You've never had a refrigerator experience this intense. Wow, I am not sure if I like that or not. Don't hate it. Don't get me wrong, it's not the worst, but I'm not sure. I'll try it the goofy way. Can you guys hear my upstairs neighbors? I can never tell if they're playing or murdering each other. It's like kids upstairs. I heard the dad one day. I swear, I'm not joking. I recorded him and was like taking notes on what I would tell the police if I heard there was a murder upstairs. I'm not even exaggerating. I was freaking out because I thought for sure there's gonna be a body found. I was that serious. Something was gonna go down. That's a little uncontrolled. Bad spacing. That's a lot. That's a lot of eye highlight. I'm gonna start over. I mean, it's funny. Like the huge anime highlights are so fun, but they're also not my usual style, of course. So it's like, what the heck do I do? Okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna multiply my sketch layer. And I'm just gonna cut this out that way. This is clipped, so when I do this, it'll just cut out the background. I'll put some color back there, but it can be like less than full intensity because the white is just too much. So maybe that's what's throwing me off. I'll obviously make it brighter than this too, but I don't hate that. Gives it a little something. Let's see. I'm gonna keep it simple, I think. I'm gonna go back to the black. Something, man, I just cannot get that to work the way I want. What is it? Gustav, how would I blend the gouache and watercolor pack? I think they blend perfectly well as is, because watercolor or gouache is basically just transparent watercolor. Uh, I've got that backwards. Gouache is opaque watercolor. So I think the packs really complement each other. It's the reason I put them back to back, because I think they just are a perfect pair. So in that sense, I think you kind of can't go wrong, if I'm being totally honest. The way I would probably start with them is uh, is probably do like an underpainting of some sort. What am I doing here? Do I have hatching here? What's happening? I'm so confused. How how am I seeing hatching here? That doesn't make sense. What layer is that? Oh no! What did I do? This doesn't make any sense. How is this working? Oh! This is I've got to use the black layer, the black version. It's multiplicative. Um, Jesus. Sorry, back to the watercolor and gouache. I think what I would do is probably um, do like a soft wash underneath with the watercolors. If you wanted to get an opaque finish, I would probably build it up with the watercolors. Um, I would probably use the flow brushes because these probably behave. They're sort of opaque, and so you could use that for kind of the less the more transparent stuff, the less opaque stuff, and then the uh, the gouache can be there for when you want to get into the heavier marks. Um, Rashid, I don't know if this is gonna get saved live. This is again my first time, so if this doesn't get saved live, we'll we'll both find out at the same time. I honestly don't know. Oops, going back. We were talking about planets earlier, and I just remembered part of the reason I'm fond of Mars. I live in LA. If you During the summers, JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, who are a NASA contractor, they build the Mars rovers, and I got to. They have open house stuff in the summer, and a bunch of years ago now, before the rovers had actually landed, they had. I'm kind of doing an undercut, so you're never gonna see it really, but I like the idea. Oops, her ear is not done. And they had the Mars rover there because they built it, and you could walk through the labs within like they had people in clean suits like working on the stuff and everything, but they had like a viewing deck. Um, they even had um, the Mars rovers, by the way, are unbelievably light. They're made of like magnesium and aluminum and all this stuff. They're like essentially weightless. I mean, it's crazy. Like even in Earth weight, they're incredibly light. And so what they did is they had a bunch of kids lay down and crawled the Mars rover on top of them. And it's spreading it out. They have like all these wheels and stuff, so it wasn't obviously hurting them, and they wouldn't be able to do it. It was so cool, and like, it's built to go over like rocky terrain or uneven kid terrain, and it was absolutely hilarious. They had all these cool like tech demo things they were working on. It was just such a cool experience. Um, and so there you could do all the like you could watch Mars like flyby stuff. I forget what was current then, but man, it was just one of those like absolutely incredible experiences. I got to hold a little bit of that aerogel stuff. Do you know the stuff I'm talking about? Like that, uh, it's like a suspended. It's like lighter, or it's as light as air, basically, like a solid. It's like the lightest solid you could find. It's super cool. Anyway, whatever. I'm babbling now. Yeah, Gustav, I think these should be saved automatically again. Like, you know, I hope you're right. I hope that's true. I would hate to be doing this and lose it, but that's also why I'm doing it kind of on a loose sketch that I don't really care too much about. My inks might be done for now. While I've got it open. Time for the chat. What's going on in the chat? You guys have any questions while I'm paying attention? All right. So, not too bad. Not too bad. Thanks for joining, Lynn. We'll talk soon, I'm sure. Cool. Okay. So, maybe just a little bit more hatching under the bib? Cape? What do you call it? Whatever it is. Just gonna let that be simple. Try not to over describe stuff. I don't need to over render something that's kind of just a background stuff. Like the more lines I put on it, the more people realize I don't know how to resolve that. I could if I spent more time on it, but like I said, it's just a sketch. This isn't serious stuff. I don't really care that much. Let's see. I do use Photoshop. For illustration, I prefer Procreate generally speaking. But I know Photoshop really well. I've used it since I was for 25 years. So I know Photoshop better than anybody I've ever met. Like I would consider myself an absolute expert. Um, but I prefer Procreate. I just think it's a better illustration tool. Photoshop is a better sandbox. It's a better image editor, generally speaking. But I do think it's It's not my favorite. By the way, this is on a stream, so it's live, so you guys are seeing it, but this isn't really announced yet. These are brushes for future gouache updates. I'll probably be doing uh, other stuff, other brush updates, and maybe sharpen up a couple of things that already exist and add, maybe like half a dozen new brushes. But it won't be like a huge update. It'll be like a little Procreate 5 brush engine glow up on the gouache max pack. These are based on the watercolor flow brushes. So uh, they're very similar. So if you're used to those, because I love those brushes, these are very similar. They're sort of just a more opaque version of those. I'll probably tweak the grain a little bit so it feels a little bit grittier, like gouache tends to. Gouache has like bigger grains in it, or at least it dries a little bit more textured. So I'll probably do a bit of that. But I think these are good brushes to give you that sort of Julian Tino Tedesco sort of vibe. That is, of course, if you know what you're doing, which I don't. Yeah, why is that green? What's going on there? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the gutter punk brushes are just there to like break a background and get messy and still and silly with stuff. They're not like daily driver, everyday useful brushes. They're just sort of like there to have some fun and loosen things up when you need to. Not every brush is going to be the kind of thing you use every single day, and that's okay. Trying to add a little bit more hatching to this. I like to add like these little, oops, um, just like little bits of this or that kind of stuff. Just like these little marks, kind of feel like flecks of dirt. What I tend to want to do with these is use them in subtle ways to kind of just to round the form. So like I wouldn't do it like this. Um, I like to follow the contour. So it's sort of like I know it sounds obvious, I suppose, but like it's a great way to suggest the turning of a form without having to be really literal about it. And of course, it's also fun just to add these for sense of action, like she just whipped her head around and you've got sweat, dirt, debris, whatever kind of flying around, that sort of stuff. Still not totally convinced about her clavicle here. Ugh, I really don't like it. Maybe let's darken it and ignore it. When in doubt, blur it out, right? Augustine, yeah, it's a good point. To break up a background is a good idea. However, I would caution people. I think I see a lot of people doing this. I'm going to show what I consider to be a bad example of how to use the watercolors. I see a lot of people using the blooms. The blooms are fun. These should be used sparingly, I think. But I see a lot of people doing really heavy textured backgrounds like this. I hope this is on a new layer. Yep. What I what that does is it immediately flattens the background and it makes it the most textured part of the entire piece. I think that's a huge mistake. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying it can't be used carefully. This is not careful what I just did, but I see this very commonly. People tag me and stuff, and I'm never gonna call people out. This is something to be used very sparingly. Oops. Um, I think like if I was to be making like dirty stuff on her, like if she was like in mid battle and you just wanted a little bit of something on her cheek, cool. Even then, I don't know if that's where I generally use it. This is, like the subtlest you can use it, the better. This is meant to be an artifact that you get on the edges of puddles and in to break up fields just that are a little too even. It's a tool to be used. Certainly, I'm not discouraging anybody from using this thing the way they want to use it. Um, all these tools are there to be used however they appeal to you. But for me, that just instantly, I don't know where my eye is supposed to go. and I see it all the time. So I would say use it, enjoy it, but be careful with how you use it because I think there is a limit to how far you can take it before it starts to get out of control. Let me show you my lighting setup here, my layers, since I guess this is a stream and I haven't really, generally speaking, been showing my interface on videos yet, and I will be in the future. I have a setup for it and everything else, but this is a perfect time to talk about this. Um, Background color is, here, let me just turn these off and we'll march through these. We'll group my lines. Actually, screw it, I'll just flatten my lines. Okay. Empty, get rid of that. Okay, so what I started with was a sketch. That's it. Started with a sketch. I've got a layer on top of this just to give the sketch a little bit of color. It's really just, I just threw a couple random watercolor brushes in there, so it's nothing fancy. You can see it's got a little bit of a tooth to it, so in case I decided if it wanted to poke through, it wouldn't look too raw. The brush I'm using for this is one I'll probably be giving away, um, or I might develop it into something else, but it's currently really good for, um, oops, it's really good for VizDev, character design. I'm using it a lot for character design right now at my day job at Netflix currently. But it's just a nice little chisel. So it kind of gives you something that's a little bit between a pencil and a pen, which I really enjoy. I like it a lot. So you can kind of sketch with it, and kind of get a little hairy with it, but it also makes really nice finished lines. So if I wanted to just, you know, carve up this eye really nice, I can get, it's a little bit streamlined, so it just gives you nice, clean um, gestures, which I like a lot. So if you want to make a clean line, it will give you a clean line, where a lot of my brushes tend to be kind of textural and meant to be a little bit messy. Obviously, with precision, I don't want to make things that are just a burden for people to use, but I also wanted something that wasn't like, for the sake of character design or something like that, this liner toothy might be a bit much. It's great. So this liner toothy, I'll give you the guys the backstory on this brush as long as we're talking about it. It's a great brush for character design. As a matter of fact, it's inspired by the Shiyun inker. It's different. I'm not trying to copy specific elements of it, but I like the toothiness. I like the grit to it, to his. But I feel like I can see the Photoshop brush engine at work on it, and it frankly kind of strikes me as a little bit digital looking. So this gives you, when you use it lightly, you get some of the same breakup that you get um, if you if you just kind of like just rake across the surface. But you can also get like a nice chisel tip. Um, his brush is great for a lot of reasons, but if you zoom in, you can kind of just see the digitalness about it, which I'm trying to avoid here. So I'm trying to do something that's just a little bit more realistic, but that still has some of the qualities about that that I think work. Um, let's see. So um, check the chat real quick. Um, Augustine, do you get a discount if you have what, the gouache back? Are you talking about the gouache update? The gouache update should be free if you have a login. If you have a Gumroad login, you'll get all the updates for free. I believe I'll probably, as long as you get the email updates and stuff, I'll probably have a way for you to get it. Otherwise, I might do a Dropbox link thing. It's a little messy. I do highly suggest giving or signing up for Gumroad when you get everything, because it's just a hell of a lot easier and you can access your library at any time. Um, I think they do a pretty good job of explaining that, but I know I found a lot of people just don't know that, so it's fair. I think I didn't sign up right away either before I realized kind of what it was, and it would store your stuff for you, which is really cool. And you do get updates. I've already done an update with the watercolor pack, like it was like a week after I released it. Um, so all right, so next layer up. So what I wanted to do with this, so I just gave it a little bit of a textured background, just like a quick watercolor texture. Um, I'm treating this one, by the way, kind of like it's gouache, I guess, but I'm putting it under inks, so the effect is going to look kind of like watercolor. but I'm working with it as if it's opaque. So it's kind of a hybrid. I'm not really trying to make it look super watercolory. Anyway, next layer. So I wanted to get this sort of a cool top light and a warm bounce light, like you might find if you're in a backlit scene or like a daylight scene where the ground is warm and it's bouncing a big soft light up into her face. Just gives you a little bit of drama. I wanted to carve this plane. I like it when you get that kind of flashlight effect, like this kind of shape. I just think that's really pleasing. So I'm trying to pull in some of that kind of stuff. Gustav, you might be able to register. We'll see. I honestly don't know like how Gumroad works in that sense, that in such a detailed way where I could explain that like you can always sign up later. If you use the same email, you might be able to sign up after the fact and get all your stuff. I'm not sure. Not sure. What I am trying to avoid, however, is a bunch of people who didn't sign up initially who want it, and now I've got to just manually email like 1,000 people, which I would not prefer. So I do highly recommend signing up for the sake of my sanity, please. Thank you very much. So here I've got a background, just to like color the background. The original Sailor Moon ref is blue, so I was like, why not? You know, might as well keep to something because I'm changing the lighting fairly dramatically, but I want to keep something about the reference in this, so it's blue. I put it really light at first, decided it was too light, so I clipped a flat color to it. So now anytime I paint the background color, it's that top color, so I don't have to reselect it. When you're working with transparent colors, that's a good idea sometimes. This, did I keep that on? Okay, I think I turned this off. I was trying like a lighter blue color. I'm not sure I'm keeping that. I can't remember. I think I had it off when I started the stream. Um, and then I have a backlight. This is just a normal light. I could set this to screen or something. I don't really tend to do that too often, so I just have it on normal because I just wanted the purity of that kind of like slightly peachy color. I think it's this. So it's I never well I rarely use like full saturation. Or I'll use white and black for graphic purposes, but I don't often use them pure. So like I might use pure chroma, but not often. Usually try to stay away from extremes, try to stay kind of in the middles. There's a lot of sensitivity that happens up here. Oh, by the way, let me show you guys a trick that I just learned. I can't believe I'm still learning stuff about Procreate. So I've been avoiding the disk version because I want to know where my whites, blacks, chroma is, all that stuff. And I always avoided the disk because I was like, well, where the hell is that? Like, I don't know where the chroma is. I don't know where the white is. If you double tap, I don't know if you can you hear that? If you double tap near the things, it'll actually snap to main colors. So it'll snap to the full chroma. I don't know what the hell it's snapping to there.